So it dawned on me recently, you, me, car companies, we're all guilty of overusing the term special. So I decided to take a step back and look up the technical definition of special. Turns out it's better, greater, something that is different than what is usual. So what in practice, at least in the car world, makes something special? I would argue it's something that doesn't happen very often. Great example is a small car company that's based in the southeast of England, that's owned by a larger German car company, bringing out, say, 3 new cars in 15 years. As a basis of comparison, a small Swedish car company, just in the past 4 years, has brought out more than 7 cars. So, today, let's really look at something special. So let's talk about engines, specifically for Rolls Royces, anything you want as long as it's a V12, at least on the ground. And if you're familiar with the Phantom 7, that was a 6.75 liter, 60-degree V12. And the technological marvel about that, besides the size and that it's a 12-cylinder still on offer, was that it was direct fuel injected, the first one on offer with direct fuel injection. Now, for the Phantom 8, they decided to make a couple of changes. It's an entirely new engine, still 60-degree V12, but the big change is to turbochargers. That drastically changes the output. So it goes from something like 430 horsepower to 563, which comes in at about the same engine speed of 5,000 RPM. But the torque, that's the biggest change for 2 reasons. Number one, peak torque at 664, let me repeat that, 664, comes in at 1,700 RPM, so that's half the engine speed of the previous engine, but most importantly, it's designed to work in conjunction with that 8-speed automatic, the GPS-controlled one that we drove in the Dawn and the Ghost. It's designed to work with that transmission to deliver power under load, and for a 5,800-pound car, that happens a lot, under 2,500 RPM. I think you and I need to go out and try that for ourselves. So without further ado, let's put our foot into it. This thing is quick. Okay, we need to slow down a little bit. This is not what was expected. So how does it deliver power from the previous Phantom? And here I would argue that it is delivering power at lower RPMs. It's more available. Now, as you know, there's no tachometer in these things. So let's try as if this was a passing maneuver, put our foot into it a bit more. And it just doesn't feel fussed is the best term. It doesn't feel like the engine's under load to move almost 6,000 pounds of mass. So net, what's important to understand here, it still delivers power as you would expect in a Rolls Royce. It just does it a bit more abruptly at a different point in the power band, which is something you usually don't discuss when you're talking about Rolls Royces. So I guess that's different. Okay, so I'll admit it, I'm guilty of geeking out about construction methods, raw materials, but generally in episodes featuring Volkswagens, Volvos, or other serial production cars. Go ahead and sue me, actually don't. But I really didn't expect to have the architecture conversation in an episode about a Rolls Royce, but apparently times were changing. So Rolls Royce has taken the decision to do this standardized architecture thing, but they're calling theirs, it's a global aluminum space frame architecture, but that's not the technical name. Gotta give them credit for a very cute name, and it's not as bad as MQB. It is Architecture of Luxury. Not making that up, Architecture of Luxury. Definitely they win the prize for the most literal name of a platform architecture in a car. Anyway, what does this translate to? The concept is to change the raw materials and to underpin 2 cars, not just this Phantom 8, but also the upcoming, they're calling it a tall vehicle, you and I would call it an SUV. So it underpins more than the one car, but also lowers the weight. But before I tell you the weight, we need to understand the dimensions to understand how much aluminum needs to go into this. Well, the wheelbase, it is 139.8, the car we're driving today. There's also a long wheelbase on offer. That is 148.5 inches. That translates to a length of either 227 in the short wheelbase car, the one we're driving, or 235 in the long wheelbase. So what does that translate into weight? 5,860 pounds, even though it's on this architecture of all aluminum. Now, to put that in perspective, that is almost the weight limit of the FDR Drive. Okay, so we got a bit of a sharp turn coming up here, so let's slow down, go to more glacial pace, something that's more tuned to this car. And the thing that is most noticeable the minute you step behind the wheel of this thing is it's designed to be more composed than the Phantom 7. Yeah, you do feel a little bit of float, and what it is, it's not so much a lean completely to that side, it's more a squat in the corner of where the weight is going. So if I'm coming around a turn a bit fast, what it wants to do is squat in the outside corner, but then the system is counteracting the weight pushing into that corner, and that's where the composure comes from. So it's a combination of the architecture that's been changed, but also the change in the suspension. But really what cars like these are designed for is comfort, whether it's long distance like this or around town. And here's a road that's not exactly perfect. There's a little bit of elevation changes, there's some broken pavement, and you feel, of course, completely isolated because of what this car is. But most importantly, it's a combination of structural engineering, so the actual strength and weight of the vehicle, but also being incredibly honest in the suspension tuning as to what the reason for being of the Phantom 8 is. Now, just between you and I, please don't tell anybody, going at a relatively high rate of speed here, and it's effortless. It's something you don't even get in those big Mercedes and 7 Series that you and I drive. It doesn't justify the resources of what this is. I don't know, that's up to the person who's actually writing the check, because my cup of tea is a GT3. Yes, you pay a lot for this, but it changes things in your daily tasks, like driving. Like, here I am going down the road, not a perfect road, and totally unfazed, but controlled at the same time. And that's something that it's hard to convey in video, in words, or even in pictures. It's something you need to experience from behind the wheel of a vehicle like this. And I've said multiple times in life, at one point in your life, I don't care who you are, if you're a car guy or car gal, you need to own a 12-cylinder car. And this is an extension of that statement, where it's not just the 12-cylinder, it's the 12-cylinder, it's the size, it's the proportions, and it's the very honest interpretation of what this car's mission is. All of that comes together to, even if it ain't your cup of tea, man, it's a damn good place to be. Now, before you and I part ways, after our first but admittedly quick look at a car that absolutely earns the term special, 2 fun facts for you. The first, and I don't know if you noticed, but that was incredibly quiet on the inside, and not for the reasons that you would think, not because of the badge or the size of the car, or even the spirit of ecstasy that pops up and down from a new shape of parts on grill. No, it was because there was 287 pounds of extra sound deadening equipment in the Phantom 8. As a basis of comparison, Dave Coleman, who you know and love from Mazda, he goes on and on and on and on about 50 measly pounds of carpeting in his CX-9. This is over 5 times that amount. Then there's how the car we drove, that short wheelbase car, was built. Now, we know it's silver, and you would think because it's a Rolls Royce, there's got to be some fancy name for it, like Seagull Silver. Turns out it's just silver, but they do make up for it with the interior. There are 3 names there. There's the primary color, which was Selby Gray. Then the secondary color, Scivaro Gray, say that fast 5 times. And then Pine Green, and then of course there was the piano black trim, not exactly my cup of tea. Then there was the options that's fitted to that specific car. And the first and foremost, and I would argue the most important, was the Gallery Cascade Steel. That's the trim on the dashboard. And you know how these car companies go on and on today about craftsmanship, even like serial production car companies? This is what craftsmanship really is. And to understand it, I highly suggest you Google Gallery Cascade Steel because there's a couple of different derivations on offer and it's incredibly cool. Then there's the comfort entry system, and then the front and rear massage seats. You absolutely better believe I use those. Then there's the theater configuration. That's the setup of the back seat and the screens. And then the illuminated tread plates. And for the life of me, I can't understand why these things are optional because it's all about the pageantry of getting in and out of a car like this that you need the illuminated tread plates to say, welcome to my wonderful car. And then there's the silver satin bonnet. This, people, is an example of what you need with a silver satin bonnet. This is called Mediterranean blue. One needs a color that pops, that contrasts with the silver hood to accentuate the proportions of a vehicle like this. But it's not just the color, the two-tone color, it's also the texture. When a color like this pops, you see the gloss more, which means you see the satin finish of the hood more. To see it in person, you really get it, and wow, does it make a difference. Then there's the rear footrests. Then there's a ghost bespoke clock. Odd to me, but a ghost clock in a Phantom. And then the umbrellas. Believe it or not, those are optional. So that's everything in the car, but let's play a game with this. I want you to guess the total cost of all of those 9 options together. So add them all together, what is that total cost? Price is Right rules. Let me know in the comments below or via our social media, MotoManTV all word, MotoManTV all word, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And with that, I say bis beta.